Welcome to Fearless Conversations, a podcast by free thinkers of the world. The content within this episode is intended for mature audiences only. Tell us about that first time you got to interact with a shark. How was it?
It was my first dive, my first certification dive. I saw sharks. They were there. They were right there. They were the Caribbean reef sharks that eventually I will come to interact with. My first interactive dive was after about a year, because it was with Ben. You had to watch the dives and watch him interact with the sharks before you started to interact with them. And with that, you acquired a lot of observational knowledge. My first interactive dive, my third interactive dive was my favorite. I still remember it was the first time one of the sharks came straight into my lap and settled her in my lap. And I remember as she did that intentionally, I kind of was like, oh, and I pat her a little bit on the head. And as I knelt down on the ocean floor, I would look into my lap, and there was like this 2 meters Caribbean reef sharks sitting there. And the more she relaxed, the more I could feel a little weight or body weight. And then sharks, Caribbean reef sharks, and many other species of sharks have a system called buccal pumping that can open and close their jaws to ventilate, to pump water through their gills to ventilate and extract oxygen. So biggest myth is people think that all sharks have to continuously swim in order to ventilate. They don't. And so as she starts doing that, I could feel her jaw pushing down into my legs, open, close. And I could feel her, moving. So she was settling, relax, open, close. And I remember I looked up and Ben was standing there with his arms like this. Uncle Ben, we used to call him Uncle Ben because he was such an amazing kind. So, and he's looking down at me and he's like, through his regulator and in his mask, he had this white goatee with a white mustache, and he's just like,
wow, on your third dive.
And I still remember her to this day.
Well, why would a shark go and lie on your lap? What, they need that connection?
I can't speak for the sharks. I never tried to speak for the sharks. I tried, though, to explain to people maybe sharks through a sensory system that we don't possess. And so sometimes we interpret sharks through the limitations of our human terrestrial senses, and do not interpret sharks through the sharks underwater senses, which we're not privy to. Absolutely. Absolutely terrible about it. So I don't want to say it, but I know the sharks in that moment don't experience fear. They don't experience pain. They don't experience a threat. So a lot of people say, well, do they like it? And it's just kind of like, I assume so. I can't confirm so. But this is a live, alert animal that can follow me with the eye, and if there's too much commotion going around, she'll take off and swim away. So it's not a forced behavior, it's a natural personal behavior. Only have a few sharks that like to do that. I have sharks that I've known for 11 years, and not once has she has laid in my lap. I have sharks that I met, and after 2 years she's straight into my lap. So it's very much individual choice. And I would say it's based on a relationship and on a form of pleasure or positive reinforcement. Is there something positive in what's happening? Absolutely. Specifically, is it physical? Is it hormonal? Is it touch? Is it connection? I don't know, because I don't know to that level of the sharks. But I can say it's positive and it's individual based. So how does it happen? It's like it happens with anything that is based on a relationship. It doesn't happen the first time. It doesn't happen the second time. It happens with time, with repetition, with understanding and respecting of each other. Hook, the one that never wants to lay in my lap, so be it. She doesn't want to lay in my lap. There's nothing forceful. She'll come in, put her head into my chest. I start petting her. As soon as she starts sliding down, she'll swim away. And that's it. That's good. She is super comfortable in coming even allow me to pet her, but as soon as she's noticed she stops swimming, she'll swim away. On the other end, grandma, crook, now natural. Grandma especially, they'll come in. Sometimes I'm standing facing this way. She'll come in, bump into my leg behind me, and I'll look around, and she's already on the ocean floor going, hey. Foggy Eye was the same. She's no longer with us, but she was like one of those that I'd be like facing this way, and I will feel a bump, and I'll be like, hi, hi. And she'll be there, and I'll turn around, and she'll just be laying underneath my arm.
She wants attention. She wants, it's like a dog almost.
Like, yes, I don't want to say they're like dogs,
like
obviously.
dog.
I usually compare them for behavioral understanding to humans like cats. You know, you own 2-3 cats. There's a cat that will allow you to pick her up, pet her, pet him. She'll come into your lap. And then there's a cat that lives in your house, slides against your legs, comes in, purrs underneath you, but never once in your life are able to pick it up.
Yeah.
But you still love the cat, and she still loves you. She's just a cat that doesn't want to be in your lap. So you allow her or him to windle through your legs. She'll come against you and brush against your legs, but never once you had it in your lap.
Yeah. How many do you know? How many sharks you
Right
have a
now here we
relationship
have 12 of the known one. We used to have about 20, and we have about 12 of the known one, and we have about 3 to 5 new ones. Now, when the new ones come in, we start identifying them through physical characteristics. So they allow us to say quickly how to recognize them. Like if I were to call you with shark names, I will call you, we'll call a huge Helgi as Curly, and I will call Mariano as Whitey. Right? Oh, what is Whitey? Well, Whitey has a very, very light skin coloration on the top of his head. Oh, who's Curly? Oh, Curly has very, I don't know, curled up fins, right? Let's say. But let's say if I had to call you with now your names, I would say Curly and Whitey, or Salt and Pepper. So now imagine we're in a room full of people, and I start calling people not by their names, but by Salt and Pepper, by Curly, by red hair, by Blondie, by glasses. I guarantee you people in the room will start identifying those individuals faster than trying to remember their names.
Sure.
And connection will be faster because they could come up to me and say, hey, Salt and Pepper, huh? You know, and make instant connection. So I named the sharks through the same physical characteristics. So we look at something as the shark swims by that is very typical of the shark. And then we start logging her presence. We have a girl, her name is Floppy. The back of her tail is flopped down instead of up like this. So it's like down. And so Floppy, it was here on this dive. Yeah, Floppy was on this dive. Floppy was on this dive. Within 6 months of seeing Floppy, she officially becomes Floppy. And she officially becomes a shark that we identify. And then we start taking pictures, ID, we're already done videos. We take videos how she swims this way, how she swims that way, pictures of her floppy tail, pictures of her dorsal fin, pictures of anything that we can catalog. And then we measure her. And we check how much she's growing.
So do the new sharks, are they more aggressive, or are they different from the sharks that have been around humans longer?
Very shy. They're very shy and very curious, and they alternate between the shy and curious. So they come on the outer skirt of the interaction. The big sharks, they want to be in there all the time. They're like, I've got this. Follow me, puppy. And the younger sharks stay on the outer skirts and monitor. They check. They're like, you can really tell. They're like, oh, I don't know what's going on there. They're also smaller, right? So you have 2 meter, 2.5 meter traditional big Caribbean reef sharks that are very established, and then these 1 meter 3-footers show up, and they obviously in a hierarchy they're like, yeah, no. So they check on the outside, and then slowly as they grow bigger they come more into the interaction. Floppy is a unique one. Floppy showed up for 3 dives. We only saw her for 3 dives, and we're like, oh wow, a new shark, Floppy. And then on the 3rd dive, she showed up with a hook that was like completely embedded into her pectoral fin. And the first 2 dives, she stayed on the outer skirts. And on the 3rd dive, we go down there, and I see her, and I see this thing dangling off of the pectoral fin, and she made a straight beeline for me.
Wow.
Came through the group, not a care in the world. I removed the hook, and since I've removed her hook, she's become part of the group. And she doesn't stay on the outer skirts anymore.
You
Yeah.
helped her.
Yes,
Amazing.
but it was really funny that on dive 3, she came straight to me. Usually it takes them quite a lot.
Right.
But with Sadat, the younger ones are also curious, so they're more inquisitive. So I see them swimming over the divers' bubbles and eating the bubbles. They're like, oh, what is this? They're kind of like almost kids,
Yeah.
right? 3 years old kids are like, what is this? So it's kind of interesting to watch them. And so what I try to do is discipline them. Like if they come for my face, I gently redirect them and tell them, no, you need to come lower. And so when they come lower, then I pet them and give them a pet. It's like when you come lower, I'll pet you, I interact with you. If you come too high, that's not the way I want you to behave. I don't want you to be around my face. I don't want you to be around my bubbles.
Yeah.
Like we do with each other. We teach children how to behave in society. We teach our dogs how, more or less, I teach my dogs how to behave amongst themselves, amongst other dogs. And so because we interact with these sharks in a certain way, we condition them a little bit in behaving in a certain way.
What is a common mistake or belief people have about sharks?
Where do we
Something.
start? Are you ready for an hour conversation about that? There are, I would say there's one big one. Let me start with the big one. The big one is every time you say sharks, people have a very narrow perception of what the word sharks mean. And they traditionally see the shark-shaped shark that is the apex predator. And they actually don't realize that there's a 509, 511. We just had 2 new species of sharks in the world. The smallest shark in the world is a dwarf lantern shark. And it's the size of a pen. The biggest shark in the world is the whale shark. And considering the name, is actually a plankton eater, filter feeders. So I would say the biggest misconception people have about sharks is when you say sharks, they traditionally hear da-dum, 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 where sharks is like saying birds.
Yeah.
And not all birds fly, not all birds are colorful. And I think that is the core of my teaching is we need to start defining sharks by location, by species, by, at the end of the day, yes, individuals and individual behaviors. And I know we can't do that for everyone, but we have to stop asking those generalized questions. We try to find a one-size-fits-all answer for 511 and still counting different species of sharks that vary from the size of a pen to the size of a bus, and give them one behavior, one answer, one solution. And unfortunately, I receive dozens of those questions, and it's like, there is not one size.
Why don't the sharks bite your hand when you redirect them in the front? What isn't a natural reaction to? Because I've seen videos where you can actually tell them to move
them
away.
Why would it bite my hand? So here's, and it's not a question, I'm not trying to be like, the question is why I actually think about, like I had somebody the other day wrote, if Megalodon existed, there would be no traffic on the oceans because they would eat the tankers or the big yachts. And I was like, well, why would a Megalodon want to eat a yacht? And they're like, oh, because the Megalodon is so big it would eat a yacht. And I'm thinking, well, then why is the great white not eating a dinghy? But in our mind, we have still that Jaws sometimes. And in my opinion, Jaws was a movie, and we need to put it to rest. It's 47 years old. For crying out loud, people use the internet and learn about sharks from information, not from a movie. Poor Steven Spielberg, he created a fiction movie. But that said, we have that mind of Jaws, right? So they're thinking, oh, the bigger the shark, the bigger the boat. And it's like, well, real great whites do not bite dinghies. They don't. They usually go, the maximum they go is a paddleboard or a surfboard, but that's the size of a seal, right? But a great white does not go after a motorized little dinghy. You go with the little motorized dinghy, doesn't come after that. So why would the megalodon go after a tanker? And that's the concept. The concept we're thinking, will something moves, they're going to go after it. I think sharks, unfortunately, get the brunt of our feelings of powerlessness. We've conquered everything else on this planet. We can create heat out of building ice homes. Dig a hole in the ice and you can survive the night by keeping warm. It's like, wait, what? We can find water in the desert. We even kind of like somewhat went to space, right? But enter the ocean. We can't swim. Even the fastest of swimmers, right? We can't breathe. We can't see. The hearing is impaired because we hear everything at the same distance, so we can't discern distance. And our eyes, which is the strongest sense that we have as species, worth net zero because it's blurred, like the background behind me. That's how you see underwater. We have thermal capabilities of a gnat in a rain pour. So even in the warmest of water, 3 to 4 hours, you're hypothermic. Wow. And here comes the shark. And so all this powerlessness that we have is represented by this master, by this beautiful predatory animal. And so our inadequacy and our fear all convolute into the shark. And that's what I see. It's a psychological reaction. We need sharks more than sharks need us. That's the message.
This is the end of our episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.